This is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com. I recently interviewed Brad Anderson and Jack Kilby on this channel where they talked about this shoot incident. Anderson snaps him down, goes for half Nelson, cross faces this jobber. That nowadays, to be a wrestler, you don't actually have to know how to wrestle, and people will train out of nothing without having to take any punishment like that you did in the dungeon or Eddie Graham's territory. This guy obviously had no idea how to wrestle. Apparently, he had roughed up Anderson's son, so Anderson amateur wrestled a bit and DDTs him on the floor. The guy did not fight back at all. Supposedly, he was crying over this. And Anderson, who we see right here, this happened, I guess, while Anderson was on parole. He was in jail for some reason. He was out on parole, so he was put back in jail over this, even though all charges against him were dismissed. He had to wait 46 days to get in front of a judge, so he actually went to jail for 46 days over that incident. Which, the funny thing is, in the old days, that would have just been normal treatment for a quote unquote wannabe wrestler. Now guys like Evil Uno from the Dark Order that would have been considered wannabe wrestlers in the old days with no idea how to wrestle for real and no real toughness to them, have hundreds of $1,000 contracts in companies like AEW. You don't actually have to know how to wrestle, and you're not tested at all in your wrestling schools. You can just call yourself a wrestler. And then when incidents happen where you actually have to know how to wrestle a bit, it's considered a big deal where this kind of stuff happened all the time in the past. Worse stuff than that happened in the past, and I'm not excusing that, but that was a receipt for something that happened to Brad Anderson's son, and the case was dismissed in court. The judge said something along the lines, "This is wrestling," and they were wrestling. The guy didn't know how to wrestle. There was a sheriff that night that said the same thing. "I'm not arresting anyone. This is wrestling." Eventually, the guy went to some magistrate that ended up trying to file charges, and the only reason he went to court, to jail, was because he was out on parole, so it was considered a parole violation. But if you don't know who Brad Anderson is, it's Gene Anderson's son. And just watch on my channel Al Snow talking about his tryout with Ole and Gene Anderson. It sounds like it was a hell of a lot worse than that, but different times. This is the era we're in with soft wrestlers. I mean, I've willingly, not even knowing that people were roughing up with me, I've been in stuff worse than that when I first started for Stampede Wrestling, where I was roughed up for no reason at all other than I was a rookie. But people just are weak these days, sadly. And I do think you should have to be a wrestler. One thing that's missing is the grittiness, and I like the days when you had to show some toughness to be a wrestler, whereas, like, in the old days, you had to at least be able to fight a little bit to be a wrestler. Now there's more wrestlers than not that have never even been in real fights, so that's just my opinion of the whole thing. Hello there from Lancaster, PA, which I'm sure I'll be back in Philadelphia one of these days. I still haven't wrestled at the ECW arena. I was supposed to for Battleground Championship Wrestling a few years ago, but it didn't quite work out. However, I'm sure I'll get other opportunities. Have a great afternoon. I'm off to the gym. Got to train for my